Kimberly Dvorak. Kimberly, we just heard Susan Rice, National Security Advisor, say that Islamic State and other elements out there in the world that want to slit our throats, literally, is not an existential threat. Am I misreading things here, or are they just completely off base?
Well, I think that, it's very, very likely that they're completely off base here because unlike the U.S., ISIS has a strategic plan, and apparently the United States and the West can't get together to actually go out there and face, confront, and actually identify what the problem is, and the problem is radical Islam.
This national security strategy that was released, it's like it was written by Greenpeace. I mean, they're talking about no nukes, a world with no nukes. Well, why not include in there a world of no war? And then part of the national security strategy is to defeat global warming and climate change. I mean, this is radical, crazy stuff. We have an existential threat out there. We have several of them, and we need to address it in reality and with clarity, don't you think?
Yeah, and I think over the weekend we saw Defense Intelligence Agency former General Flynn come out and really harshly and just completely criticized the administration. And he kind of compared it to, if you turn on the TV and you see Rome burning, just because you turn off the TV doesn't mean Rome's not burning anymore. And that seems to be the path that this administration wants to take. And they really don't think that this is a existential threat to this country or to the region or to the West. And people need to understand that, they may be fighting against each other right now, but we are the great Satan, and Israel, of course, is little Satan, and they would love nothing more than to knock us off that perch.
Okay, so in Iraq, we know what happened. Obama removed all troops, didn't leave a status of forces agreement in place, and we saw the void was filled by the Islamic State, and we've seen the horrible results. But let's move to Afghanistan. We have a similar situation apparently brewing there, only maybe worse because the Afghan government is so unstable.
Yeah, well, we've discussed here on this show as well that NIE, which is the National Intelligence Estimate, consists of 16 U.S. intelligence agencies. They said even if we continue to flood the country with U.S. dollars, that by 2017 the Taliban will take over. Now, buried in an October of last year report, Sigar, who's the special inspector for Afghanistan, came out and said, look, we're losing troops over there, and numerous generals on the ground over there have said that they're losing a great number of troops. The Afghans are actually fleeing because they know that when the terrorists come to their neighborhood, they say, look, if you're going to work with the West, we're going to not only kill you, your family, and your pet goat. We're wiping you out. And of course, they followed through with their promises and red lines. So, I mean, you look at the Afghanistan as a whole, and it's completely, it's a lost cause, even by our own estimates. And then you tie that into the country of Jordan, which is, obviously fighting what's going on now in Syria and Iraq, and they risk going into complete chaos, and ISIS recognizes this because a large number of Jordanians are Sunni Muslims, and you've got the country's being run again by a minority, much like Assad was.
Right, but then you throw in there Yemen, which has been wholesalely underreported in this country. We had a coup there, they had a coup there, and these are the Shia. As backed by Iran taking over now, and they dissolved the parliament, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, this is a real problem because we could have a radical state in Yemen.
Yeah, and let's keep in mind that Yemen is one of the Middle East's oldest nations. So, and it's been predominantly ruled by the Sunnis, and you have to take into consideration that there was a headline also over the weekend that nobody talked about, that the Houthis are now going to ally with Iran, they're allying with Russia, and they're allying with China. So this is a huge insult to the House of Saud, because the House of Saud sees itself as the caliph, and Yemen going to the other team is a complete and utter insult to Saudi Arabians who follow Wahhabist, Salafist, mentalities where the women are beaten up and stoned to death for adultery, rape, those types of issues. And this is what this administration keeps missing here. If we don't identify the problem and we don't come up with a strategic plan like ISIS has, and they've proved that they can actually go out and take land, hold land, and take on other countries. They're going after all these countries that are weak. Jordan is going to find itself in a whole bunch of trouble because they've got the 1.82 million to 2 million refugees that have fled across the borders into Jordan. It's a UK monarchy.
Right, and Iran is just watching all this, right?
Yeah.
And they could be armed with nukes very soon if Obama gets his way. And you talk about a country that could fill a vacuum rather rapidly. Iran is a factor in all of this.
Yeah, well, they've been in Iraq for a long time, and they have slowly and quietly been turn this entire region into their favor.
Yeah.
And in the end, they will use what they have to get rid of United States, Israel, and any other country in the West. If they have that ability, they will go after that. They are an existential threat to this country, despite what this administration is.
And last we heard from Iraq, they said they're getting more help from Iran than they are the United States to try and beat back Islamic State, and that is just upside down. That is so in the worst interest of everyone in the West, including this country.
We're about ready. Well, and let me final point here. We're about ready to go back to the World War I nation lines. They're going to actually go back to those lines. We're not going to see the Middle East, countries exist within the next 15, 20 years. It won't be. It'll be completely different.
We're seeing the Crusades Part 2 is what we're witnessing. Kimberly, thanks. Coming up next.